Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to your Bitcoin course. First off, I wanted to say thank you for joining me on this journey. I'm excited to go through everything Bitcoin with you guys, whether you're coming from like an economic standpoint or maybe the technology standpoint or like a personal finance, you want to know about the investing and making money with Bitcoin, whatever it might be, understanding Bitcoin and how it works. That's what I want to teach you, and it's going to be valuable whatever field you're coming from or whatever you might decide to do with Bitcoin. Today we have a very special sponsor unlike any sponsor we've had before. World of Warships has reached out to me to try out their game and share it with you guys. World of Warships is a fantastic free-to-play warship combat game. It's the game with the perfect balance of action and strategy. The game keeps its players engaged with massive naval fleets in extreme detail to over 300 iconic ships across numerous regions. And when I say extreme detail, each ship in the game takes 6 months to create from beginning to end to design it as close to the real thing as possible. There's always something to do with weekly missions, updates, and events. You can play solo with your friends or interact with the 30 million players across the world. I've had a great time playing the game whenever I need a break or just want to have some fun. If you're a new player, use the code BattleStations2020 for a bonus, including extra credits and a premium ship. If you're still unsure if this game is great, just ask my wife, who had to deal with me playing it at 2 in the morning. It's a little addicting. So I'll see you guys in game, and thank you World of Warships for sponsoring this channel. So where do we even start? What even is Bitcoin? And we're going to be talking about what Bitcoin is all throughout this course because it can take a little bit of time to kind of wrap your brain around the concepts. But essentially, Bitcoin is a digital currency, or what most people call a cryptocurrency. And when you look up Bitcoin on the internets, you can see it has a price. So one Bitcoin equals this amount. 9,800 some United States dollars. Now, if you're using a different currency, that's fine. If United States dollar isn't your primary currency, the content in this course will work just fine. Just understand that's my currency, so that's the standpoint I might be talking from when we're talking about currency conversions or whatever. And if you look this up, you'll probably see a different number because of the volatility of Bitcoin. So the price changes very frequently, and it changes by large amounts. So you never really know what price Bitcoin is. I just did a couple Bitcoin videos not that long ago, and the price was 8,000, and then I saw it go down into the 7,000s, and then I saw it past 10,000. So it's always changing, and people capitalize on this by making investments and getting huge returns. But people also lose a lot of money doing this because they invest at the wrong time, they buy a bunch of Bitcoin, and then it tanks in value and they lose money. So when it comes to an investment, you always want to approach Bitcoin very carefully and be vigilant, as you never really know where Bitcoin is going to go. And with any investment, you shouldn't invest money that you're not aware that you might lose. So don't be investing money you need, because the value could go down and you could lose that money. Also, when it comes to investing, you don't want to invest in anything you don't understand. Some people are immediately going to tell you that Bitcoin is a bad choice when it comes to spending your money. And that's not necessarily true if you understand the principles behind Bitcoin and how it works. So that's a little bit to touch on the financial aspect of Bitcoin. Basically, you buy at a certain price, and then later down the road, you can sell it and get back your United States dollar or whatever currency you use on the day-to-day. When it comes from a technology standpoint, Bitcoin is actually very important because it introduced a popular technology now known as blockchain. And this is essentially a type of distributed database that allows us to make all kinds of crazy applications without a centralized entity. And that's a bunch of jargon that we're going to break down throughout these episodes. But essentially, Bitcoin allows us to have a currency without one central entity regulating it or making new Bitcoin. The responsibilities that a centralized entity might have had with the current financial system, in Bitcoin, these responsibilities are actually distributed to all of the nodes in the Bitcoin network. So we're going to get into what all of that means in the upcoming episodes, but from a technology standpoint, Bitcoin is one of the coolest new technologies that probably has the most potential to really change the world and how everything works. So that's your introduction to Bitcoin. And what I would encourage you to do is just look up Bitcoin. And when you go on here, you can see more on the Wikipedia page, but you can also look up Bitcoin price, and you can find different charts. So for example, this Bitcoin price index, this is going to show you the price of Bitcoin over time or for a particular date range. So just today, it started at 9,000 something and 9,879, and it went down to 9,700. So it went down like $100, but you can really see the differences in value when you zoom out a little bit. So if you look at a year, you can see there is quite the change here. It started out, that's pretty low. So February 22nd, so a year ago from today. It's actually a little tiny. I'm gonna zoom in here. I'm like scrolling my eyes in as far as I can. I'll try not to do that. So a year ago today, there was the price of 3,800, and now we're up to 9,000, almost 10,000. So the price is extremely volatile, and you can see completely, if you go all time, the value at one point was nothing, and it ended up picking up value and growing, and then you can see there's various spikes in here. For example, there's this very large spike. There's this famous time frame where the price of Bitcoin was 20,000, and then it immediately went back down, and people were like, oh no, is it finally crashing? I don't know. But then the price actually started to go back up, and now it's kind of doing the same waves. And I think part of this volatility is because it's a new thing. So I kind of think of it as like a tech startup, right? When a tech startup starts, they might have months or years where business is booming, people are talking about them, and then the next couple months, maybe that's not so much the case. And over time, those ups and downs kind of stabilize, and things become a little bit more normalized. So the highs are a little bit lower and the lows are a little bit higher, a little bit more predictable. I'm assuming that's what's going to happen with Bitcoin, but we can never really tell. Nobody knows the future or what the price is going to be in a year from now or 5 years from now, but I think we're all curious. Now, another cool thing we're going to be using throughout this course is a blockchain explorer, and I'm just going to show you the absolute basics of this right now, but you can find it at blockchain.com/explorer. This is one of the options out there, but there are other explorers, and this will allow us to take a view of the technology behind Bitcoin and see how things work. So you can see all these different blocks is what they call them, and inside of these blocks there's different information. Specifically, there's a bunch of different transactions, and this is actually chained together in like a linked list data structure known as a blockchain. So behind the scenes, Bitcoin has a lot of technology we can talk about, and we're going to do that. But first off, I think it's more appropriate just to understand how to use Bitcoin, because it's kind of like the United States dollar or any other fiat currency, as we call them. So it looks like all I have is a quarter with me, and this can be used to buy things. And when you're really young and you're first starting to learn about money, you start to realize that the more of this money stuff you have, the more things you can buy. But you don't necessarily understand, where does this money come from? Who makes this? And how does this have value? Why did we decide to use these coins and these dollar bills? All of those behind the scenes things, you don't need to understand those to understand how to use a quarter. Well, the same thing applies with Bitcoin. You don't necessarily need to understand all of the details of the blockchain, block size, and the difficulty in Bitcoin mining, and all of these things. However, if you're going to start doing anything serious with Bitcoin, you need to understand those details behind Bitcoin. And it just helps to start learning about how to use it first, because if you've never seen a quarter before, and I gave you 1 million of them, you probably have no idea what that means. And same thing, if you had 1 million quarters, you might start to take your finances a little bit more seriously and understand how to protect your money, how to make sure that money maintains its value or grows over time, and all of these different things when you start getting into the money stuff a little bit more. So in the context of Bitcoin, we're going to first understand how to use it, how to get some Bitcoin, how to transfer it around, and then we're going to understand a little bit more about how to protect it and how the technology behind it works so that you don't lose that Bitcoin or so that you don't understand it incorrectly and end up getting scammed or confused and losing it. We don't want to do any of that stuff. We don't want to lose our Bitcoin. So we'll start with the basics and then we'll go a little bit deeper in the juicier substance. So I'm actually super excited. I've been looking forward to doing this course for a long time, and I put a ton of information together, so I'm really excited, and I hope you guys are as well. Stay tuned for episode 2 because we're going to be talking about something. So see you then. Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this episode, I want to give you a little bit more details on what Bitcoin is. So the previous episode, we did an introduction. We talked about that it's a cryptocurrency and that it uses this thing called a blockchain. But now I just want to give you a little bit more substance so that you can hold a conversation talking to somebody about what Bitcoin is. So where do we even start? Well, first off, pretty much any website about Bitcoin, you'll see some other stuff floating around. So for example, on this CoinDesk price chart for Bitcoin, you can see some other stuff. We see Ethereum, we see XRP, we see Bitcoin Cash. These are all examples of cryptocurrencies. So you can kind of think of them as the competitors to Bitcoin. They might work just a little bit different or have different features or different things that make people want to buy them. But at their core, they work very similar to Bitcoin. They're using a blockchain. They just might have a couple of variations in how that blockchain works. But they're also going to have prices, and they're also going to be able to be traded amongst people. So should you jump in and learn all of these different cryptocurrencies? Maybe in the future you can study each one in a little bit more detail to understand their selling points and what makes them unique. However, the underlying technology and the concepts you're going to get from this course in Bitcoin, it's probably going to apply to all of these cryptocurrencies you see. So if you finish this course, you'll probably understand how Ethereum works. And then what you can do is you can go study Ethereum and just figure out these minor differences between Ethereum and Bitcoin. But you'll already understand the blockchain, you'll understand how all that works, and you'll be good. So my recommendation personally is just to start focusing on Bitcoin, and then after you got Bitcoin down, you can learn the altcoins, which altcoin is just a common name to talk about the coins that are not Bitcoin. Bitcoin kind of set the stage for all these coins. It's the OG cryptocurrency. It's the one that started this trend. It's the one that blockchain was invented with. So Bitcoin is the place to start. Just spilled water all over me, darn it. So when Bitcoin was announced, it was announced through a white paper. And you can see that here. You can find it at bitcoin.org/bitcoin.pdf. And if you are interested in a lot of the details of what made Bitcoin come to be, you can go through this white paper and read it. However, I'm just going to call out a few things throughout this course from this white paper that basically brings these concepts from this white paper into reality. So hopefully we can touch on some of these things and you'll have a better understanding of Bitcoin because of it. So the very first thing you understand is that it's a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So the whole idea with cash is that if I take physical currency, cash, I guess it's not paper cash, but a coin, I can give this to you and buy a lollipop or whatever you might be selling. So I give that coin to you and you give me something in return. And there's no middleman managing the exchange. But when we talk about digital money, there's always someone in between that exchange. So if I buy something from Amazon, I have to use a credit card or a debit card. If I buy something from you and I send money to you through Apple Pay or Venmo or just PayPal, well, that exchange is facilitated using those services, so Apple or PayPal. The whole concept behind a peer-to-peer electronic cash system is that we want to make the same system where I can give you money directly without a third party, but we want it to be electronic. So that is the problem that Bitcoin is trying to solve. How can I give you money through the internet without going through a bank or a company such as PayPal? And that's exactly what it's saying here in the abstract. It would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. So when you send money to someone online or you're buying something, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and the purpose of Bitcoin is to bypass that. The current financial system, the way it is set up, it's built upon trust. We are trusting this third party to process our payments and make sure everything goes well. We also have to have trust in the other individual we're working with. If I'm selling you something or you're selling me something, we have to trust the other person in that exchange. We have to trust that they have the money. So if someone writes me a check, we're making a trust assumption that that money is in their bank account. Or we trust that this person is not going to call their bank and be like, yo, I got scammed. Can you cancel this transaction? And then they keep the item we sold them. So as a vendor who accepts Bitcoin, I wouldn't have to worry about the person canceling the transaction because they can't just call their bank and cancel it. Once I get their Bitcoin and they get the item, it's essentially permanent unless I send them back their money in exchange for the item. So we don't have to trust that other individual at a personal level. We just have to trust the system that allows us to transfer money, aka Bitcoin. We trust Bitcoin, we trust the blockchain, and then we don't have to trust the bank or the person we're doing business with. It's kind of like the way a contract works. You know, maybe back in the old day, a good handshake was all we needed. But as people did not fulfill the requirements for the handshake, people started being like, oh, I don't really like this handshake thing. So we introduced the contract. Now we write down what happens from one person and how much the person is going to get paid from the other person. You can apply the same thing with Bitcoin. So you can kind of think of it as these transactions are miniature contracts. I sell you a service and you pay me Bitcoin, and that is written in the blockchain for everybody to see. So in a blockchain explorer, you can go into a block and see all these different transactions. They're kind of just like miniature contracts where one person pays another person for a service and it's written down on the blockchain. Bitcoin gets even more confusing because the system to allow these transactions to be confirmed, the blockchain, is a very complex technology. At least if you're brand new to it, it can seem very complex. But essentially, this peer-to-peer network is made possible thanks to a distributed system. And by distributed, it's just another word that means not centralized. So it's the opposite of centralized, such as a centralized entity like a bank. So we actually have a bunch of computers all over the world contributing to this system. And these computers are competing through a process known as Bitcoin mining. And you don't need to understand what Bitcoin mining is or how it works right now, but we will talk about that by the end of this course. But what Bitcoin mining is, essentially, if we give you like the 15-second crash course, is a bunch of these computers competing to confirm transactions into things known as blocks. So they put these transactions in the blocks, and they want to be the official person to put this block on the official blockchain, which you can see on a blockchain explorer. For example, this block right here, this was submitted by somebody, and this person gets a reward in exchange. So that is essentially how Bitcoin mining works. But basically, this distributed system allows us to not have a centralized entity like a bank. So to wrap that up, Bitcoin is peer-to-peer and it is distributed. Peer-to-peer meaning you can send money from one person to another, and distributed meaning that the network has a bunch of different nodes instead of one central node, such as a bank. So taking a look back at the homepage of a blockchain explorer, you can see this column here that says hash and it has these numbers. Well, each one of these is a block, and a block contains numerous transactions. So we kind of just group things together. Rather than each individual transaction being a thing, we group them in a group of like a few thousand, let's say 2,000, and this block then gets a hash, which has to do with cryptography, and we'll get into that once we talk about the technology. But if you open one of these blocks, the transactions that are a part of this are seen at the bottom, and you can see where they came from and where they are going, as well as the amount. So for example, 0.72 Bitcoin. So if you had to visualize it, it'd be something like this, where we have numerous transactions in each one of these blocks. So now, instead of me paying you a quarter for a lollipop, one of these transactions inside of these blocks is going to show me transferring 25 cents worth of Bitcoin from me to you. All right, so that was a lot. We talked about what Bitcoin is and a little bit about how it works, but now I want to focus purely on how it works in the sense of how is this a sustainable form of money. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the next episode. All right, so you guys got your introduction to Bitcoin, and we even talked a little bit about what Bitcoin is and how it works, but now I want to talk a little bit about it in more detail. So yeah, it's kind of like this thing where you have an introduction and then you have like a little bit more and then a little bit more, and you just keep getting these slices until you understand the full concept. So the previous episode, I showed you guys this illustration where we have these blocks and they are linked together in a data structure known as a blockchain. I want to talk a little bit more about how Bitcoin as a currency is going to work. The very first thing is we remove trust, which I talked about this in the previous episode. So if I give you this coin, you take it, it's now yours. And this works, but when it comes to digital currencies and trading money digitally, well, there's a lot of more complexities. For example, you can call your bank and say, hey, can you cancel that transaction? I got scammed. It wasn't me. You can lie. And these things make the financial system as is very complex. And there's a lot of trust based in this. We trust the bank. We trust the consumers. Bitcoin removes this trust and goes back to the way cash works. However, it's digital. So it's the digital cash. With cash, you know that once I give you that money, we cannot reverse that transaction unless you give me that money back. The Bitcoin white paper explains it like this. With the possibility of reversal, the need for trust spreads. Merchants must be wary of their customers, hassling them for more information than they would otherwise need. A certain percentage of fraud is accepted as unavoidable. These costs and payment uncertainties can be avoided in person by using physical currency, but no mechanism exists to make payments over a communications channel without a trusted party. A communications channel being the internet. And basically, he is saying that the system is fine when we're using cash, but we want to use digital currency. How do we have the same benefits of cash, but now digital? That is the problem Bitcoin is trying to solve. In order for Bitcoin to work the way it wants to, transactions must be irreversible. Meaning, if I send you money, there's nothing I can do to get that money back unless you go through the effort of sending the money back to me. And it works the same way with physical currency. As a result, once these transactions go on the blockchain, and you can see them here, this is immutable. We cannot go back in time and change or cancel any of these transactions. It is permanent. Now for this blockchain structure with all of these different transactions, instead of just thinking of them as blocks, think of them as permanent blocks. So think of them as the bedrock of Minecraft, or think of them as concrete you cannot destroy. And the blockchain just keeps getting longer. So I'm going out of frame here, but over time, we just add more and more blocks, and that data is permanently available for everyone to see. So a particular transaction, such as this one here, there's nothing that person can do to go back and change the value or change the person they're sending the money to or cancel it. The lesson learned here is that don't send your money to the wrong person because you cannot get it back. If you get scammed, you're 100% scammed. There's no way to fix it. There's a lot of scams out there when it comes to wire transfers. So for example, if you're buying a house and you need to pay that down payment, scammers will try to pretend to be somebody else and give you incorrect transfer information so that you send that money somewhere incorrectly. However, with a wire transfer, if you accidentally send money to the wrong person and you catch it quickly enough, there's a chance that you can undo that and get your money back. With Bitcoin, there's no way to get your money back. So there's a lot of additional responsibilities that are put on yourself when you're dealing with Bitcoin. And I can explain why. We're going old school drawings here. When I send you money, it goes through a third party. And that third party has responsibilities. You can think of it as outsourcing the money management to this third party. If we get rid of this third party, these responsibilities, some of them are given to me. And some of them are given to whoever I'm sending money to. So we no longer have that third party to hold our hand, which means we actually need to take control of our money and be responsible, because now we have more responsibilities. So now when I'm sending money to you directly, I gotta be a lot more careful. So a core attribute of Bitcoin and the blockchain behind it is that it is immutable, essentially. And I say essentially because from a functionality standpoint, it's immutable. You can't change it. But from a technology standpoint, it is possible to change it, but in normal circumstances, it should not happen. So if someone found a bug in the code or were able to hack the Bitcoin blockchain, then there is the possibility for reversing a transaction or changing the blockchain. However, it is extremely, extremely difficult, and the incentive to do it is not really there. So from a consumer perspective, it's immutable, it's not going to change. From a technology standpoint, it's technically very, very difficult to change, but not 100% impossible. So the reason why it's technically very difficult to change the blockchain is because the blocks are cryptographically connected. So this block here, if you were to change the data in it, you would also need to change this block, and this block, and this block, and any block after that one. That's because the block data is hashed, and that hash is an input for the next block. So if you changed that block, it would change the hash, and it would affect every single block after it. So there are various issues we could talk about when it comes to blockchain security. For example, there's different attacks. There's like a 50% attack and these other forms of attacks that make blockchain have issues. However, these issues are being ironed out, and over time they become less and less of an issue. So we can start to trust Bitcoin and the blockchain a lot more over time. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention in this video is that Bitcoin is open source. So you can see all of the code for how this works on GitHub, and people contribute to this. So you can go in there and you can read the code. It's in C++ if that's something you're into. This level of transparency to me is important because if I'm just going to put my trust in this Bitcoin network, I want to know what is going on. And that's one of the benefits we get from Bitcoin that we're not going to get from the banking system. Unless you maybe do a ton of research or you work at a bank, you really don't understand what's going on behind the scenes, and you just assume that paying somebody money, it's going to work. But now all of this is made open source for us to see, so we can see exactly what happens when we transfer somebody Bitcoin, assuming you can understand it. However, if you don't understand C++ or coding, you can be assured that the fact that anybody can go in here and read it, and the system is still structural and people are still using Bitcoin, there is a level of trust that is built there. Because a lot of the people could go in here and read this, and people would stop using Bitcoin if there was something sketchy about it. So that is all I got for you as an introduction to Bitcoin, how it works, what it is, all that junk. Now we're going to actually start using it. So I'm really excited, so stay tuned for the next episode. All right, so you guys are finally ready to get your own Bitcoin. You want to get your hands on this stuff and start using it. That's what I'm going to be showing you guys in this video. And people suggest getting your first Bitcoin in various different ways. So you might hear different ways from different people. My suggestion, and personally this is what I've had the most success with, is to trade my fiat currency, which is a fancy word to say money that doesn't actually have any physical value. It's just established as the default currency for a particular country. So USD is an example of a fiat currency, United States dollar. And you can trade your fiat currency for cryptocurrency through something known as an exchange. And then once you have your Bitcoin from this exchange, you can transfer it out of the exchange into your own wallet so you're no longer relying on the exchange. Some people do not like this method. Why? Because we're kind of relying on a third party. So we're getting rid of the banks and we're getting rid of these money transferring systems, and we're replacing them with an exchange which kind of does the same thing. So it seems a little bit silly. However, the end goal is not to rely on this exchange, but instead get your Bitcoin and transfer it out of the exchange, which I'm also going to be showing you guys how to do in this course. So personally, I don't have a problem with it. I think the exchanges make it very easy to get started with Bitcoin. There's a few downsides to the exchange though. One, you have to give them personal information. So probably your social security number, maybe a driver's license photo, And the reason behind this is because of certain laws known as KYC laws, Know Your Customer. So supposedly these exchanges have to keep record of this information because of like the government or whatever, and on occasion they will share this information with the government. So basically, the government doesn't want you to have unregulated money that you can just buy stuff without paying taxes and so forth. So that's one of the downsides of using an exchange. You have to trade your personal information. There have been situations where hackers have broken into these exchanges and have taken people's Bitcoin, and as a result, people have lost a lot of money. So not only are you giving them your personal information, but you're trusting them to take care of your money. So it could be that in the situation of a hack, maybe your personal information is at risk, or your savings in Bitcoin are at risk as well. So in my opinion, you should always try to find a trustworthy Bitcoin exchange that either has really good track record or some forms of insurances or just really good reputation, whatever it might be that makes you comfortable. Try to find that in an exchange. I personally don't worry about it a ton because I'm not working with huge amounts of Bitcoin, and if I lose it, it's really not the end of the world, and it's a rare occasion. It does happen. So you don't want to leave thousands of dollars in an exchange, but if you're just working with like $100, you don't have to have that level of worry. So put in whatever amount you're comfortable, and then you don't have to worry about it. So if you need to start with $10 or whatever it might be, go for it. And then once you're a bit more comfortable, you can start working with larger amounts of money. Now, the other big way of getting cryptocurrency is to offer a service or a product in exchange. So essentially become a vendor that takes Bitcoin. Maybe you have a salon or a computer repair shop and you can take Bitcoin as payment. In that situation, you don't have to give out any personal information and those Bitcoins come to you directly. So that might be a little bit more of a secure option or a private option if that's what you're interested in, although it might be a little bit more work if you're starting out. Going back to fiat currency, when you first got money, you didn't really understand the concept of work and making money. You just got money probably as a gift, and you learn by spending it. Then once you realize you can buy stuff with this money, you start thinking, how can I get more? And then you start selling things in exchange for money. So I personally feel like a natural progression is to start with an exchange, get that Bitcoin, and then you can start working with it. And if you find it valuable, then you can figure out how to get it as payment, and then you just go up from there. So all of that rambling pretty much just to say we're going to use an exchange and buy some cryptocurrency. So my exchange of choice is Coinbase, and when you log in, it's going to look something like this. Now, if you're creating a new account, you might want to try it out on mobile. I found that to be a very nice user experience. I had to take a photo of my driver's license, and it was nice just to have the camera right there, and it was really simple. However, you'll need to go through that process. I'm sure you guys can figure that out, and it shouldn't take too long. Mine took like an hour of waiting time for them to verify me. However, different people have experienced different wait times. Why? I'm not really sure. Maybe it has to do with your name. Like maybe if you're John Doe, they have a harder time. I don't really know. But anyways, once you get your account set up, it should look something like this. And when you get into here, you're going to have a portfolio balance. So this is Bitcoin that I have sitting in the exchange, and I'm trusting the exchange in a way I would trust a bank to maintain my money. I am not a person who's opposed to leaving money in the bank. I'm also not a person who's opposed to leaving a little bit of money in an exchange. However, if I had a large amount here, I'd probably pull that off of Coinbase and use a hardware wallet or something else. So we'll get into that later. But anyways, how do you get a portfolio balance? Because when you sign in, it's going to say $0.00. Well, what you do is you hit this trade button and you buy a certain amount. So you type in an amount, say where that money is going to come from. So I associated this with a bank account. Once you type in the amount you want to buy, you can hit preview, and it's going to tell you the fees. So unfortunately, there are fees whenever you buy or sell cryptocurrency, but the fees don't get real huge. I think up to like $3 or something. So you want to make sure you're working with enough that the fees are not just outrageous compared to the amount you're buying. So for example, if you're buying $2, 50% of that is going to be a fee. Nobody wants that. So with a $10 purchase, $9.01 is actually going towards Bitcoin, and this is the amount that I am going to buy. So obviously you can buy fractional Bitcoins. You don't need to have $10,000 sitting around. Thank goodness, because I wouldn't be here. And then once you're ready, you hit buy now, and that's going to go in your portfolio. Now, if you want to send this money immediately, you can see some information here. It says available to send in 4 days. However, if I change my payment method to a debit card or a bank wire, I can send that money immediately. So maybe if you guys are just starting out, you might want to use a bank card. So yeah, hit buy now, and I'm just gonna X out of this because I don't want to buy more right now. You can also sell here. So people always ask me, how do I take my Bitcoin and get that back into United States dollars? Well, what you do is you hit sell and you put the cryptocurrency you want to sell, Bitcoin, and you deposit it to Cash USD. And that's another number on your portfolio here. So you can scroll down, you can see that US dollars, you can hit that and then hit withdraw to go to your bank account. So it's a little bit more of a process, but you don't need to worry about that for right now. Just get some portfolio balance here. And then if you want more details, you can hit the portfolio tab, and that's going to tell you your assets. It's going to split it up by different cryptocurrencies. So I have US dollar, which is not a cryptocurrency. And then there's also USD coin. Don't get the two confused. I don't have any USD coin. I do, however, have $63.90 worth of Bitcoin. And you can see over here recent transactions on the right, or you can select a particular cryptocurrency and see the transactions, such as this one here. I got a Coinbase referral, and that's $10 worth of Bitcoin. Going back to your assets, you can see that you can buy multiple cryptocurrencies. So if you want to just have a broader portfolio, you can do that. All right, guys, so that is your introduction on how to buy Bitcoin. In the next episode, we're going to talk about how to store Bitcoin, so stay tuned. All right, everybody, this video should be pretty quick. We're just going to talk briefly about where you store your Bitcoin. So in the previous episode, we bought Bitcoin, and you can see it here on our Coinbase portfolio balance. So the first option is just to store it here. So anytime you store Bitcoin, you store it in what's known as a wallet. So even this portfolio balance here, it's made up of a bunch of wallets. So go into your portfolio and you can scroll down, you can see your different assets, and you have a wallet for each one of these assets. So if you go into Bitcoin, you can see we're actually in the wallet tab. So there's a wallet for Bitcoin associated with your Coinbase account. However, there's more than just this wallet. There's all kinds of wallets out there, some more secure than others. The problem with this wallet is that the wallet is associated with an exchange, meaning we are trusting this exchange with our private keys. And we haven't really talked about keys, but it's basically like the password for your wallet. It's the thing you don't want to share with anybody. Most of the time it's okay, but if someone hacked into Coinbase, there's a chance they might be able to get your keys and take your money from your wallet. So an important component of any wallet is that you should be able to send and receive money. So I can receive money here, and it gives you a warning here to make sure that the person sends Bitcoin to this wallet. And the reason why is because they'd be sending it on a different blockchain, and it wouldn't ever get to your Bitcoin wallet, and that person might lose all their money. So that's another risk you have. When we're working with United States dollars, we don't have to worry about all these different asset types or whatever. We just send people money. With cryptocurrencies, since there's so many different in the market, we have to be very careful that when we send Bitcoin, we're sending it to a Bitcoin wallet. Keep that in mind. So hit understand if you do, and the person who wants to send me money or Bitcoin will just scan this QR code if they are using an app, or they can use this wallet address if they want to send it another way. So this QR code is just a visual representation of the same address. So it just depends on how the person is sending me money. Same thing, if I want to send money, I can go and hit send, and then I can enter a Bitcoin address here. Then what I can do is I can say what I want to send. So I could say $10 as an example, or this certain amount of Bitcoin. I can write a note which gets attached to that transaction. So if you want to do that, here's where you would put that. Now, a thing you need to know is that anytime you do a transaction, there are transaction fees, also known as network fees. So it's so annoying. There's fees with everything. There's fees with Coinbase to get your cryptocurrency, and that's how they make their money. But there's also a network fee when you use Bitcoin. It's annoying because who likes fees? However, it's essential to making the Bitcoin network work. The fees, they're not just absorbed and they disappear. They actually go to the people that make the Bitcoin network possible. Through Bitcoin mining, if you were to confirm a block, you get the network fee for those transactions. So the computers or the nodes out there that make these transactions possible, they get rewarded these network fees, and they also get rewarded new cryptocurrency that goes into circulation. And it says on here, to avoid network fees, send to an email address. So if there's another person on Coinbase, they will absorb those costs or do whatever else to make that possible without any network fees. However, that's going to be to another Coinbase wallet attached to the exchange. It's not going to be a wallet off their network. In that situation, you have to pay those fees. So yes, the fees are annoying. However, they are important to incentivizing these different nodes to keep the Bitcoin network going. All right, so enough about sending and receiving money. Now let's talk a little bit more about the wallets, because that's actually what I wanted to focus on in this video, storing your Bitcoin. This wallet is attached to the exchange. I gave you the warnings about this, but there's other wallets out there you can use. So on the Bitcoin website, bitcoin.org/en/choose your wallet, you can go in here and you can hit next, and basically they'll ask you a bunch of questions and ask your priorities, and they will suggest different wallets for you to use. Anybody can make a wallet, so I could go in there, I could learn how to work with Bitcoin, and I could create software to store private keys essentially. Each wallet has its own unique things that you need to watch out for. So for example, some of them allow you to back up your keys. Others will use a seed phrase, which is a little bit different. Others have support for QR codes. Some give you a lot of customization, and some just are very, very simple. All those things are totally up to you. And not only will you have those types of variations, but you can have variations between platforms. So you could have a wallet for your desktop. You could have a wallet on your mobile phone. You can have a wallet literally on a piece of paper. These are known as paper wallets, and they just have the key written on them. The wallets don't actually store the Bitcoin. They're not like a storage container for the Bitcoin. Rather, they store private keys, which are kind of like your proof that you have permission to use that Bitcoin. It's like your passwords. So think of them as password managers more than a physical container for Bitcoin. So it can be a little bit confusing, but the only way a paper wallet would work, because obviously you can't store something digital in there, is if it's just storing your keys, which grant you access to the Bitcoin. So we're getting a little into the details here. What I want to focus on here is just finding a good wallet. If you're a desktop kind of person, go for that. Just make sure whatever you can do to back up your wallet or your keys, make sure you do that and keep it very secure. If someone gets your keys, say bye-bye to your money. It's sort of like giving out your bank account username and password, security questions, routing number and account number, and 100% permission to do anything with the money. You don't ever want to give that information to one person. So the private key is like all of those put together. It gives pretty much full access to your money. So you don't want to give out your private keys. And you don't want to get your stuff hacked. So if you're on a computer and you got a virus, there's a chance you could lose your private keys and so forth. So just be really careful. So on this website, it gives you 4 different categories here. We got mobile wallets, desktop wallets, web wallets, and hardware wallets. My preference, at least for small amounts of money, meaning like the amount of money you would maybe keep in your checking account, mobile wallets, great. This is good because you can easily make transactions. It's good for everyday use of the Bitcoin. You're probably not going to keep thousands of dollars in your mobile wallet. This is more for day-to-day use. Desktop wallets, this would be a good alternative. I haven't really used desktop wallets. I started with mobile wallets and that's just been my thing. The risk here is that if you lose your device or your phone breaks, you are at risk of losing your funds if you don't do the appropriate backup measures. So watch out for that. Same thing with desktop wallets. Web wallets I have not really used beyond the wallet attached to my Coinbase exchange. That works for me, but I'm not going to go to another website to create a wallet. If that's something you're into, that's fine, but I am just too concerned for keyloggers or hacks for this website or whatever it might be. It's not something I personally feel super comfortable with, but you certainly can. And lastly, the most secure for large amounts of money, that is a hardware wallet, which is a physical device. So those are the types of wallets you can use. We're going to learn about mobile wallets, and we'll get started with that. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is a continuation of how to store your Bitcoin, but this time we're going to be talking about a specific wallet, a mobile wallet that we're going to use to transfer our Bitcoin to and have it a little bit more of a secure way of storing our Bitcoin than just leaving our Bitcoin on the exchange. We've talked about the risks of doing that. You can weigh those if you want, but there's another benefit of using a mobile wallet, not just for the security of not leaving it on the exchange. And that benefit is that it's easier to use and it's ideal for transacting day to day. You know, in the future when everybody's taking Bitcoin, if you want to go buy a coffee or whatever, more than likely people will be using mobile wallets. Maybe, I don't want to predict the future, but that's what I can see being used the most. Now for a mobile wallet, it's going to be an app stored on your phone, and the private keys are also going to be stored on your device. So you don't want to lose your phone, you don't want to ruin your phone, and you want to be careful giving your phone out to strangers if you have large amounts of money in your wallet. Another thing is that for the app that we're using, we're actually going to have what's known as a seed phrase, which is just a sequence of words that will basically be used to create all the private keys we need for our wallet. So if you take a look at the Bitcoin wiki, which we actually haven't talked about, but there's a wiki that covers pretty much everything you need to know on Bitcoin. There's an article about private keys, and you can see it talks here about a seed phrase, and it's basically a sequence of words that encodes the same information as private keys. So this is the thing that is going to be used to back up your wallet, and it is the thing you don't want to give out to pretty much anybody. No, just don't give it out to anybody. So if you get a new phone and you want to bring your wallet to the new phone, you're going to use that seed phrase to basically log in to your wallet. It's like your username and your password combined. So here's an example seed phrase, just a bunch of words in a sequence. And if you type in these words to your app to log in, it will open your wallet. So technically how this works is it'll be converted to a number, which is used as the seed integer. And a seed integer is kind of like the input for a generator to a deterministic wallet that generates all the key pairs used in the wallet. So all of the keys are generated from this one phrase of words. So a deterministic wallet is just a word used to describe this concept. It's a system of deriving keys from a single starting point known as a seed. So as for security, this will give you 128 bits worth of security, or in other words, 2 to the 128 possible inputs or different seed phrases. So guessing one is actually extremely difficult. So if you want to know exactly how many possibilities, that many. So that's the total possible number of seed phrases. A bunch. So in terms of protecting your wallet and protecting your money, the seed phrase is what you need to focus on, specifically who has access to it, and if you back it up how you're doing that, you need to make sure you're not storing it in a place that people can just find it very easily. So for example, you don't want to create a document on Google Drive called private key or secret seed phrase or don't read this, because those are the first things people are going to look for. Now the next logical question is, what wallet are we going to use? Because I've been talking a lot about it and haven't even mentioned it. And it's actually going to be, in this situation, the Coinbase wallet. Now you might be confused because we talked about the wallet that was associated with Coinbase. And maybe there's a bad naming convention here, I don't really know. But the wallet attached to Coinbase is part of the exchange service that they offer. The Coinbase wallet app is a different service that is local to your device and is not attached to the exchange. So the private key information, or I guess your seed phrase in this situation, is local to your device and no one has access to it. So when you look for Coinbase, you're going to find the Coinbase app, which is where you can buy Bitcoin and see your portfolio. And then there's the Coinbase wallet app, which is a separate wallet than the one that comes with your Coinbase account. So what you actually need to do is you need to transfer your money from the exchange to your wallet. Now here is the important thing you need to understand about this. So when we started with Bitcoin, we're bypassing the bank. And when you do that, there are added responsibilities to the people doing the transaction. So I need to be more aware of how I'm using my money and how I am protecting my money because I no longer have that bank to help me out. So the next step I do is I start working with an exchange, which also does a little bit of management of my money to an extent. When I have my own wallet, it's a transfer of responsibilities from this exchange 100% to me. So if I screw something up, it's 100% on my head, it's nobody's fault. So if you left the money in the exchange, you can call support, maybe you forgot your username and password, they can help identify you and get you your account. If you forget your seed phrase or whatever it might be for your wallet, you're done. There's no support you can really call, and that responsibility for the money is all yours, so you are out of luck if you forget your seed phrase. Now this wallet is similar to the portfolio in the exchange because you can have numerous different cryptocurrencies on there and it'll just add up the values of them to show you your balance. Now one thing I did want to mention in this video before we start transferring money, again, remember that you need to transfer to the right type of wallet. You don't want to transfer Bitcoin to a Bitcoin Cash address, for example. It's a different cryptocurrency and you have pretty much 100% guarantee of losing your money if you accidentally transfer your money to the address of a different cryptocurrency. So don't do that. The second thing is that you don't really want to reuse addresses. So for example, on the wallet, you're going to have an address and this address can be used for people to send money to you. And each time you receive money, that address is going to change. And that seed phrase is going to give us all the information to generate all the private keys for all of these addresses. So from the consumer perspective, using this app, you don't really have to worry about it. It's going to do it automatically. But just in general, you don't want to be reusing addresses. And we can go into detail on how this works. But essentially, it puts you at a higher risk and there's lower security and privacy when it comes to reusing addresses. An address is sort of like, we haven't really talked about addresses and keys a whole lot, but let me just explain it real quick. An address is similar to an email address, but this is a bad illustration for one reason. So you can use the address to send money to, but once you send money to that address, you need to use a new address to send money to the same person. So you're always going to be getting new addresses. This is different than an email address where you use the same exact one. The private key is more like your password and your address is derived from this. So basically your seed phrase is where everything starts, it's the seed, and that can give you all the information for your private keys, which give you all of your information for your public keys, which give you all of the information for your public addresses. So yeah. It's a chain and it's a little bit confusing, but the things you need to know about are your addresses you use to receive money and the seed phrase, which you use to have access to the funds and basically proof that you own the funds and can spend them. So the next episode, we are going to do some money transfer. So let's get started with that. All right, at this point, you have a pretty good understanding of how Bitcoin works, and I've given you about 1,000 warnings on how to not lose your money and all that stuff. But now let's just start using it. We are on Coinbase.com. This is where we bought our cryptocurrency. And now I want to transfer this to our wallet. So what we need to do is from the Coinbase.com homepage, we are going to either select portfolio or just go down to your portfolio down here and select a particular cryptocurrency, in this case, Bitcoin, obviously. And we're going to send this Bitcoin. Now the address here, this is the important part. This is where the money is going. It's irreversible. Again, I'm sorry I keep saying the same stuff, but just want to make sure you guys really understand before you mess something up. So you need to make sure this address is 100% correct so you don't send money to the wrong place. That being said, you can't just type in anything in here and have it go to somebody or a wallet, because not all values you put in for the address are valid. So if you put an invalid address, it's not going to work and you're fine. But if you mistype it and it happens to be a valid address, then you're going to send the money to the wrong place. Most of the time you're going to be fine. Just be really careful to put the correct address in here. And if someone sends you an address, the ideal way to do this is copy and paste the address versus typing it out, or use a QR code. If you're using a wallet on your phone, for example, you can send and you can take a photo of the QR code. It's really simple. So you take an address, you paste it in here, and then you select the amount. We'll say $10 worth of Bitcoin, and then you can put a message and then say continue. Then you just have to do two-factor authentication. So get a text message, type in that code, hit confirm. And now this is the part where the magic happens. What's going on behind the scenes? This transaction is announced to the network. So all of the nodes of the Bitcoin network, and anybody can be a node. You can go download Bitcoin Core and join the Bitcoin network. And this transaction hits these nodes, and these nodes can direct this transaction to Bitcoin miners. And you can be a node and a miner, or you can just be a node that directs traffic. But the miners are going to add this transaction to a block. So there's your transaction. It's in a block, and it's going to be in a block with a few thousand other transactions that this computer has received. And now the process of Bitcoin mining happens. So this block is being pieced together on numerous computers at the same time, but only one gets to say officially that this is the block. And that process is known as mining. And in order to be the person to confirm this block and get the Bitcoin and transaction fee reward, you have to guess an input to a hashing function to get a particular output below a certain number. There's a lot of information, but basically we have a function and we know the output, and we have to guess the input by incrementing what's known as a nonce. So this transaction is going to take some time. It might take 10 minutes or so for it to show up on the blockchain. That's because a new block is added on average about every 10 minutes. So what you can do is you can go to the Blockchain Explorer, and you can sit here waiting to see when your transaction shows up. Additionally, inside of Coinbase, you can hit View Details, and it says pending right here. If you come back, you'll come here and see that this says completed rather than pending. So if I go look at an older transaction where I've sent Bitcoin, you can see it says completed. And I can hit View Transaction, and the Blockchain Explorer pops up, and it shows this transaction. So while we wait for this transaction to be completed, we can explore the blockchain using some of my older transactions. So this transaction we are looking at, you can see that it's actually a part of a block. It says included in block 613263. So that's the block number. Each new block, that number is incremented, but you can select that and see the other transactions in this block. So scroll down, you can see there's a bunch of transactions, and in fact, there are 2,950 transactions as a part of this block. And one of the miners confirmed this, specifically Poolin, which is actually a mining pool, so it's a bunch of people put together their resources to confirm blocks, and then they split the reward based on how much computational power they contributed. All right, so let's go back to Coinbase and let's take a look at this transaction that is pending. And what you can see is that it still says pending, but it says confirmations 1. And basically each new block, this confirmations number is going to go up. So if we go to an older transaction, such as this one here on January 17th, you can see there's been 5,000 confirmations. So basically what Coinbase is doing here is it's saying that it's pending because it's only one block deep. But after each new block, it becomes harder and harder and harder to change the blockchain, and this is basically confirmed at a deeper level. So what we can do is we can view this transaction and see all the information, and you can see where the Bitcoin came from, as well as the address that we sent it to. There's this other address in here which is like, we didn't send that. What's going on here? This is a concept known as change. Basically, an amount from the starting wallet is split up into this amount here, and then the rest is change that goes back to the sender. So the Bitcoin is essentially divided into two amounts, one that goes to the destination and one that comes back. So that's a little bit weird, but don't worry about that right now. The main thing that you want to see here is that the money was delivered, and it has one confirmation right now, and this was the total value, $11.19. and there is a fee of 0.000029 Bitcoin, which sounds like nothing, but if someone confirms a block with 3,000 transactions, those fees add up. That is the basics here, and what we can do is we can look at the block that it's included on and see the other transactions that are part of this block. So yeah, you can scroll through here and you could find ours if you really wanted to. And this is all public. So for example, you could go to this address right here and you would see the same exact transaction. Just good luck typing that all in. It might take a little bit of effort. But you can see here the confirmations is now 3. And what that means, if you go to the Bitcoin Explorer homepage by hitting this BTC right here, you can see that the one our block was a part of is right here, but there are now 2 blocks ahead of it. So our transaction is essentially in the blockchain 3 times. It started here, and then the hash of this is in this one, which the hash of this is in this one, and it becomes harder and harder to change the deeper it is. So if you're doing a huge transaction, like let's say you are selling a Lamborghini, right? You might not want to deliver that Lamborghini until a transaction is 6 blocks deep, or however much you feel comfortable. The general recommendation is that if something is very valuable, 6 blocks deep is considered really good. 1 block deep, it's not as secure, so you should probably wait a couple of blocks for anything worth a lot of money. If you're just doing something simple like doing haircuts or selling food or whatever it might be, you don't really need to worry about it because the chances of losing that money is very slim, and the extra stress of worrying about it is not necessary because it's very unlikely. However, for very large exchanges, you probably want to wait a few confirmations deep. Coinbase, I don't know at what point they say it's complete, but let's take a look here. All right, it looks like it's completed and there are 3 confirmations. So maybe it just waits till there are 3 and then it's like, we're good. I'm not entirely sure. And then on the wallet side, you should see this transaction as incoming Bitcoin to your wallet, and it's no longer associated with the exchange. So if you wanted to use another type of wallet, such as a hardware wallet, that hardware wallet's going to have an address for you to send cryptocurrency to, and you'll just send the money there and you're done. Now you can do this again for different wallets. So from your wallet app, you can send money to another wallet, or if you need to get fiat currency, you could basically send that money back to your Coinbase wallet by hitting receive here and sending to this address, and then you could exchange that for United States dollar. So you can start working with the money like normal money and get practice with that, and maybe get some practice with different types of wallets, maybe get a hardware wallet, maybe get a paper wallet, and just get experience with different things. So that is what I got on transacting with Bitcoin. See you guys in the next episode because we're gonna touch on some more security things, I think, and I'll see you then.